you and Kara have perceived there to be a need for this kind of mission in Africa. What is that need? What's causing you to create what you're doing?
I would say the last 50, 40, and 30 years, progressively, the United Methodist Church in the areas we call central conferences have had increasing lack of access to resources. Not only access, but the inability to produce their own materials in their own languages, in their own context. These places may have a history of resources, and they may have old resources that they remember or they can pull off a shelf, but they've not had a way to access the current resources of the church or develop their own context. So we're addressing it. There's not been any way to address that in the past. There's been no system built to fill the gap. And the time is now, and I guess we might say the two of us have heard the call to respond to this. The general church is given support through the GBOD, and so that's what we're doing.
I came at this work initially as a volunteer in mission in Malawi. And when I arrived, I saw not many families had Bibles, not many members of the church had hymn books, and these are just basic supplies for worship and for resourcing and for developing as a disciple, and they just were not either available or they were too expensive for the families in Malawi to purchase. And because of my relationship with the Upper Room in the past, as the writer and editor began to work with the GBOD to address this in a more systemic way, and in a way that had integrity for the people in Malawi, in a way that had integrity for the people in Africa so that they could write their own resources. When I first came to Malawi as a volunteer, in my office were bits and pieces of old Vacation Bible School curriculum from the United States. They weren't complete, they were outdated, but folks in America had the good intentions to provide these resources, but they weren't relevant for the literacy level of the country, or even for the technology of the company, or of the country. And so I became very passionate about being able to help the people there write the resources that they needed in their language so that they could develop as disciples in the best way that they knew how.
The goals of this are centered around three English words. The necessary resources be available, affordable, and appropriate to the context. And that's what we're addressing. One leader in one of the areas of Africa expressed the need this way and helped us understand the sort of paradox that we see the African church as spirited, full of faith, lively and vital, and wish we could have that. But when we asked, well, what is the value of the resources? He responded, our church is wide and growing. It's wide, but it's not very deep. And we need resources for learning so we can deepen our understanding of the faith that we have.
So to have those resources available, simple resources as well as theological resources to train pastors who can train lay people so that they have a real identity.
And I think that's what we're trying to create, is that sustainable system that enables that to be a reality across the church as it comes down to each local area. The resources being developed not only benefit the church here, but they benefit the entire church as the church in the United States and Europe and other areas begin to hear how God is speaking through the voice of Africans, through the voice of the Philippine church in ways that we haven't before, because there's been no publishing. And now that voice begins to come through in publications, whether they're digital or whether they're print, it doesn't matter. Hopefully this magnifies that voice in a way that helps us all listen to the Word of God.